Dzień dobry, witam Was bardzo serdecznie. Dziś skupimy się na liderach, ale osadzimy ich w konkretnych realiach. Jakich? Dziejącej się piątej rewolucji przemysłowej. Tak, to nie pomyłka. Trzecia i czwarta to już przeszłość. Piąta przestaje być medialnym sloganem, ale jest już rzeczywistością firm na całym świecie. Zauważamy, że zmiany w sposobie funkcjonowania biznesu są nieodwracalne i mówi się, że są to zmiany najgłębsze i najszybsze. Właśnie o nich i o tym, jak być liderem w tych nowych realiach, porozmawiamy dzisiaj. Moim gościem jest Beatrix Eder, wielokrotnie nagradzana trenerka przywództwa i mówczyni. Współpracuje z liderami, pomagając im stać się bardziej kompetentnymi i pewnymi siebie w praktykowaniu przywództwa, które pozwala im być skutecznymi w tym coraz bardziej zróżnicowanym, hybrydowym i zmiennym środowisku. Beatrix, welcome to our live. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thank you, Agata, for inviting me.
I know that you are a very busy person, so I really appreciate that you found the time to speak to us today.
So we really had a good connection, and I appreciate this event that you're organizing. So it's great to be here.
It's really difficult to translate Bliżej Siebie into English because it means closer to ourselves and closer to each other. But let's call it, to make it simplify, just closer. Let's get closer today.
Isn't this a beautiful paradox? The closer we are to ourselves, the closer we can be to other people.
Exactly. And this is what we talk about in our campaign. But let's begin with the title of our today interview, which is the Fifth Industrial Revolution. What is this all about?
Yeah, that's a big question. And some people even ask, do we have already the Fifth Industrial Revolution, or are we still in the fourth? So in very simple terms, industrial revolutions are about innovations, technical innovations that change the way we work and live. And so this was the case with the steam machine, mechanics, the automation, the mass production, the computers, and now with digitalization.
Every industrial revolution is an invitation to a new system of work. What kind of a new model of work does emerge from the Fifth Industrial Revolution? What does it mean to us as workers and as humans?
Mm-hmm. So I guess the Fifth Industrial Revolution is really about the collaboration of humans and smart technologies. The Fourth Industrial Revolution was a bit eliminating people by automating processes. I think in the Fifth Industrial Revolution, it's really using the speed, the precision, the reliability of technologies, but connecting it with the human factor, with human ingenuity.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like there is a paradox. The more we think about machines, the more we are closer to humans' needs and bend to focus from technology back towards humanity, because we talk about people in this new model of work. Do you see that from your perspective as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think the world, we are humans, and companies, products, services, and the economy is created by humans and for humans. Right? If there are no people, if we eliminate all the tasks that people do, then what would it be for? And then there is also this fundamental human need of connecting with others, be it to share our ideas, to learn from each other, to debate, to give each other support. But we need other humans. We are human beings, and we need other human beings.
When I look at the work in the last 50 years, I have a feeling that everything changed, but work really didn't too much. I mean, we still wake up in the morning, we still drive to work, we still have schedules, meetings, teams, managers, we have 40 hours, 5 days, titles. Don't you see it?
Well, many things have changed, and some do remain constant. So we live in economic systems where we need to work to generate an income, right? We don't live in exchange or gifting economies anymore. But there are a lot of things that have changed and that are still changing, both in regards to the tasks that we do as humans, and also how organizations structure themselves and organize the work. So a few things that are fairly recent, and I think they will stay, are hybrid work, remote work, flexible work. And I am guessing that over time, these ways of working will be more accepted and more widely spread. And then another thing that is changing is really how we approach not just management, but really leadership. So I think the 21st century is a lot about collaboration. And it's about collaborating with people across geographic distances and differences in background, experience, and identity.
Mhm. So, who is the leader of the fifth revolution? Recently, I came across a headline saying that the greatest need for Industry 5.0 is a human leader. Do you
Mhm.
agree?
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it. I think that everybody is a leader. I think everybody is a leader within their own sphere of influence. And I think it's also important to remember that um, we can take and we have to take responsibility and we have impact.
Mhm.
Because otherwise we fall into helplessness and cannot orient our lives. So for me, leadership is about taking responsibility um, for guiding our actions and choices and knowing that we have impact. Some people have bigger impact, some people have a smaller sphere of influence, but we do all have impact. And in that sense, everybody is a leader.
Oh, okay. So a mother is a leader as well, a father, and also a manager at work, and a lady that is selling us apples in the store. She's also managing some kind of relations, right? This is how you define the leadership.
Yes. So I think we all have power. And what I mean with power is really to influence situations to a certain outcome. And this is where differences come also in. So you mentioned a mother, and then going with a mother, there is the child. A child has less power because children can decide and influence a lot less than grown-ups. And when we bring this concept into the organizational concept, it's really important to know who has power, structural power, and social power, and how do we use it? How do we use it in inclusive ways across the differences in power with the other people?
So, do you think the leaders need the psychology skills?
I'm not sure if everybody needs psychological skills. I think whether you are a people leader or not, it's helpful to have self-awareness and to
Mhm.
invest in growing our self-awareness, in knowing how we function, who we are, how we want to contribute to the world, how we have been socialized through our experiences of gender, race, social class. I think all this is important, yes.
So we said who is a leader, but let's talk about challenges and also opportunities facing contemporary leaders.
Mhm. Change and transformation used to be something that some companies go through at specific times, but this is not the case anymore. change and even transformation is constant, and people are almost getting tired of it. So how do we keep an orientation and know the direction, and what do we stay true to when everything is shifting and changing?
Yes, in Bliżej Siebie campaign, we talk about change and adaptation. We are all facing unknown nowadays. Whether a leader always needs to have the answer?
My personal opinion is no. And my personal opinion is also that it's not possible anymore. Because the world is becoming very complex, interconnected, and for this reason, it's impossible for a single person to see everything. And this is why I said earlier that the 21st century is really about collaboration, and collaboration with people who are different from us. Because when everything is complex and quickly changing, we need to have a broad range of perspective. And we need to know which information is important, what do we act upon, and what assumptions or what decisions are we taking, even when a situation is uncertain and ambiguous.
But this is really hard in the times that there are so many information, there is such a communication noise around us. How should we know which one to choose, which information would be a benefit for us and for our people?
That's a good question. I think sometimes change comes as a big sudden change, like an earthquake, like natural disasters. But sometimes change, and especially new trends, are coming drop by drop in tiny, small, weak signals. And so we need to look out for these weak signals. I think teams, not just people, but really teams, need to have a certain sensitivity to these weak signals, because most of them will not become new tendencies, but some do. And if a team and an organization is able to recognize it and jump on it and create an opportunity, they will have a competitive advantage.
So we should question status quo.
It's about practicing curiosity, and practicing curiosity is also not knowing, because when we believe that we know, then we are not curious anymore, because we know the answer, right? So what can we be curious about? So practicing curiosity is going into this beginner's mind of, how does this work? Why is it working like this? What is changing? Is this the best way of doing it? And is this still the best way of doing it? Or maybe it was good until now, but it's time to tweak it.
And it requires to be very courageous, I think.
Yeah. When nothing is guaranteed, and especially in complex and ambiguous environments, it's hard to know what will pay off. So yes, courage is needed, and I guess it's also about a sense of expertise. So knowing your field and your profession, and still having this beginner's mind, so as to practice curiosity and scanning the environment. But again, for this, you need to work with people.
Yeah, exactly. Do you believe that managing the change is managing emotions?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Well, we are humans, and humans have emotions. And it starts to be more accepted in a business context that we have emotions, and emotions are not just when we feel happy or excited. But emotions are super important, they are messengers, and it's through emotions that we are connected to our environment. So our emotions give us cues on what is happening around us and what we need. And so when change is coming up, depending on how I see the change, I might be happy and excited because it's something I was looking forward to and expecting. Or I might feel very anxious, having a lot of doubts and worries because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's very different emotions that then point to what is important to me.
In our campaign, we talk about managers who are tired with the changes because they are constant. They're, as you said, actually every day. So how should we deal with that kind of tiredness? I mean, we may even be from the very nature optimistic, but when you have so many changes, isn't it a natural state that we are just simply tired?
It is natural. It is human. Well, there is the individual decision on how you want to bring yourself into work. What are your responsibilities? But I think overall, people who are in leadership positions, there is a real need to increase our capacity. So it's not about adding skills and learning techniques. This we have done in the past, I don't know, 30 or 50 years. It's like broadening ourselves to be able to contain more. When we have inner complexity, we can face outer complexity in easier ways or more easily.
Thank you for saying that, actually, because sometimes I have a feeling that we add so much into the field of the leader that we create a superhuman, and we require him or her to be really ready, courageous, mentally resilient, creative, and not at all tired. But you say that we should maybe even more unlearn something to learn something new and be more as a container. Isn't it about just keeping the space, something like this?
Yeah, about holding the space. So what you described and what is still often both the expectation to leaders, but also often the expectations that leaders have to themselves, is to know all the answers, to take quickly decisions, to find solutions, to give direction and guide people. I think that this doesn't always work in today's world. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And this is where I say that the power of not knowing can really benefit a team when the people leader is someone who sees the team as advisors, and each advisor or team member has a different background, a different way of seeing things, a different way of reasoning. And when the leader creates a space where this can be brought up, that can create synergies and amazing performance and engaged and collaborative teams and all those beautiful things.
In the second or third industrial revolution, there was no space for emotions in business. We said that business is business, emotions are something that you may have in your free time, but keep it away from the work. Nowadays, it's different. In a way, we include emotions in the business, and we treat them as I would say, a campus, like navigating the new ways. How do you see it from your international perspective? This is what we learn in Poland, but I'm interested how it is in Switzerland, in other countries that you cooperate with, also in Asia.
Yes. So I think I see this tendency that emotions are more accepted. Of course, it depends also on companies, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there are overall tendencies, and then you have corporate cultures or even subcultures like team cultures. But yes, overall, it is more accepted. It is also more widely known that we cannot cut off our emotions. Because
Mm-hmm.
if we think for a second, what would happen if we had no fear, right? It's fear is a bit of a taboo in the business context, but
Yeah.
we might take decisions that are too risky. What might happen if we had no guilt? Well, we might take reckless decisions. We might lose our integrity as a person or as an organization. So all these emotions, that's what I said earlier, that they point to what is important. I think it really depends also on the identity of the person. So we still live in a patriarchal world, especially in the world of business. So it's very much shaped by patriarchy and very pronounced gender roles. So if we go into the realm of feelings, every human being has the same feelings, whatever their race or gender or age or educational level, we all have the same set of feelings. What is changing is how the expression of those feelings is perceived. So, for example, a man who is angry is often seen as a passionate leader. A woman who is angry is seen in a more negative way as being bossy or too assertive.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing this diversity here. Like this is something I wanted to ask you. The work environment is more diverse than ever before. Do you see it as a challenge or as an opportunity?
Well, I see it as an opportunity. I think when the world is becoming more diverse, which is a fact, we are also more interconnected. So we are a lot more interdependent. We are not independent anymore. Something that happens at the other side of the world, and COVID is maybe the most poignant example of that. It just sweeps over like a tsunami. Okay, so yes, we are interconnected, and organizations also need to speak to really the whole population. It's so they cannot just speak to one small segment. And in that sense, they need to be able to work with people who are different.
Mhm. Yeah, so how to be a leader for such different people with different needs, with different emotions, habits, genders, um, how to find a common denominator.
It's a nice notion, the common denominator. It's in mathematics, we speak of the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
I think in an organizational context, I prefer speaking of the highest common denominator, meaning that people find something that has a bigger value, that is standing above the immediate project or task that they are doing. So when they know why they are working towards something, it's easier to work together.
So like a higher sense of what they do, the higher goal.
And again, when people practice inclusive leadership, I think one important thing is to recognize subtle dynamics between people, power dynamics also. So who is speaking up? Whose opinion do we listen to? Who do we credit? Who do we give credit to? Um, and um, and then the people leader's task is also to find what I call common ground or a non-controversial essence. So when a lot of people, different people are together, of course, it takes a longer time to get to decisions. There are more perspectives. There is potentially more friction, which is not necessarily a bad thing. This is what sparks creativity. But so the leader's task is to integrate all this and not let all the differences run into different directions. So it's about converging them so that we take the diverse inputs and we still go towards this common objective.
Okay, but it requires really high ability to communicate, also to bring this psychological safety into the room.
Yes, psychological safety is the foundation, because if we want people to participate, and especially to bring in their own perspectives and ideally divergent perspectives, right? Because if everybody agrees, then there is not much creativity coming out of meetings. So we want to invite divergent perspectives, and we want to keep it in balance or time it. When is it time to bring in a lot of divergent perspectives? And what do we do with them so we can still converge and move forward together?
So on one hand, I can see a lot of room for empathy, but on the other, I see a room also for like performing the discipline, because we need to keep that container and also be the one who is managing this, as also like keeping the right atmosphere in the room. So performing also the goals and the tasks and the deadlines, right? There are still deadlines in our work.
Absolutely. Empathy is important, just like self-awareness and people skills and all that. Research shows that what is even more important are processes that help to create a safe and inclusive environment. Because when there is such a process that people follow, the group will benefit from it, even if not all the participants have high levels in psychology and empathy and people skills. The process is carrying the group forward.
Do you know any example of it on the like a specific task? Can we go through it so our viewers can imagine this?
Absolutely. So let's take decision making, because in organizations we take constantly decisions, and then the question is, how do we take these decisions? Most of the time it's very top down. So either one person or a group of people who have some power, hierarchy in the organization, or represent a majority, they decide on something, and then it's rolled out to the people. Okay. Now, if you agree with the decision, it's good for you. You will be enthusiastic to follow it. But if you don't agree with it, or if you think that certain things were not considered, you probably will be demotivated. You even might be resentful that your expertise and perspective was not taken into account. So a process for convergent decision making is to first present what is the question, what do we need to decide on. Okay, so to have clarity on this, no misunderstandings. And then before we move into taking the decision, we gather criteria. So what is important if we want to take this decision? What do we have to consider? This is, I would say, the most important part, where the people leader needs to be active in facilitating and holding the space. and listening well to people, partly to invite juniors, outliers, naysayers, all the people who are often not invited to share their perspective. And once they give input, it's the people leader's task to translate it into what I called the non-controversial essence. So what is the essence? What is really meaningful about what this person has shared in a way that everybody can agree upon? And I give you an example. So if someone says, I want him to stop being rude and abusive. Most people, especially the person that is being spoken of, will feel defensive. So if we translate this like, oh, so what you mean is you really care about having an environment where we have safety and we can trust that we meet each other's needs and we consider what is important to each other. Most people will agree. Yes, that's what we want. We want safety, we want trust. I want to know that I can share my views. And even if people don't agree with those views, it will not be labeled or minimized or dismissed or ridiculed.
Okay. So the leader has long gone beyond the task management. It's more about humans management, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is also one of the biggest difficulties when people are being promoted for the first time into a leadership position, that they go from being a technical expert to looking after people. So what they brought, they have been really good in some technical expertise, and this is the reason that they are being promoted. But as people leaders, their expertise is not that important anymore because they have to integrate a team and create this fertile soil, if you want, for creativity and problem solving.
And it requires different competences. So it sounds like a transition from being a manager to being a leader. A manager is someone, I can imagine that who manages the tasks, and the leader is someone who facilitates all this that you said before.
Yes, and that's also a very common challenge that people who have been newly promoted into a leadership position, in the past, they have been working on tasks. It was very tactile and immediate. And when they come into a leadership role, they have to open their vision and see at least midterm, sometimes even long term, and see the strategy and how does the immediate action align with that strategy.
So how to make that transition successfully? Personally, and from this organization point of view, should such a leader go to some coaching first or some maybe therapy? I don't know.
Well, both coaching and therapy can be very useful for pretty much every person.
And self-awareness, right? Because before you mentioned that the self-awareness is really important to manage others' emotions. You first need to know how to manage yours.
Absolutely. All leadership starts with self-leadership. And these different helping professions, coaching, mentoring, counseling, they all help. They're all useful, but they help in different ways. Now, you're speaking to a coach, so of course I will say that they need coaching.
That's why I asked you about it. I'd like to encourage our viewers to use coaching opportunity, because I went through this and I really appreciate that time.
So coaching has the benefit that it helps the person, the client, really find their own reasons, their own solutions. It will not provide answers like a consultant. It will not teach best practices like a mentor. And it will not dig in the past like counseling. Coaching is very much in the present moment and focusing on the future. What are you doing today? What do you want to do? And even more, who are you today and who are you becoming? And so many organizations have discovered coaching. It has been around for a few decades now. I think there is still a need to coach the more mid-level managers or even juniors, because this is how they can be groomed in learning leadership skills instead of arriving in a leadership role and then discovering like, my goodness, what am I doing and how can I handle all this?
Mhm. So how to make that transition successful? Coaching is one of the ways, but what would you advise as other steps for a regular manager to become a real true leader facing the unknown?
I think it's probably different things that need to be used simultaneously. It's good to get training because training gives you information, but training will not help you to practice skills. So most people, when they go into trainings, they discover some new tools and tips what they can do. But they go back to business as usual. They have their meetings and deadlines, and they forget about the tools and the tips.
Yeah.
Coaching is a short to medium term process, and there is connection between the sessions. So usually a coaching session will start with checking in what has happened since the last conversation, what worked, because very often there is some action that comes out of a coaching session. So how did that action work? And if it didn't work, what was the reason for it? And so this creates this continuity and a certain momentum.
What are the challenges of building the trust and motivating teams in the era of digital transformation, where before we set about the circumstances where we are able to meet like physically with others, with our teams, workers, co-workers, etc. But nowadays there are a lot of hybrid or digital teams. They meet only through, like we do right now, through internet. So this digital transformation for sure has the impact on the way we work, but also on the way we communicate and how we build the trust and motivate our teams and each other. What would you advise for this digital teams to concentrate on?
So I think remote and hybrid work is amazing because it gives us opportunities to work with people and different people can work on their own terms. But as you say, it's sometimes hard to build the trust, especially because I would say most people have not learned how do we build this trust when we see each other only on a screen or mostly on a screen. I do 99% of my coaching in the virtual space. So
Wow.
I know it is possible to build a safe and trusting relationship, both in a one-on-one conversation and also when I have a group with whom I'm connecting. But it requires certain tools and a slightly different language. But because it's a skill, it can be learned.
Yeah. So how do you do it? I mean, what specific tools or language do you have that bring us this kind of safety and trust into the meetings?
So some are the most obvious things. I think it helps when we see each other. So turning on the camera helps because we know who do we speak to. And even if we see only, the upper body, we still get a sense for, the energy and the mood of the person. We see the face and micro expressions. When I speak with a group, I tell them that my preference is having the video on, but I don't want to make it an obligation. Okay, so if someone has whatever reason that they cannot or don't want to or don't feel comfortable, don't do it. I want people to be enthusiastic about the choices that they take. But I usually state that my preferences, I can better interact when I see and when I can read the faces. So this is the obvious. The language, I think we need to be a little bit more clear and precise. And it can be small things. So let's say if we are in a group meeting, if I ask a question, I will probably ask the person. So Agata, I wonder, blah, blah, blah. Because if we sit with 5 people and I just ask my question, nobody knows who am I meaning? Who do I want to have a response from?
Who do you target to?
That's one thing. I think it's depending on teams and meetings and exact settings, it can be helpful to not just state what we want to discuss, but how do we want to discuss it? So what is the objective of this meeting? How do we want to proceed? So let's say this is the theme of our meeting. I want to walk away with a decision that we all can embrace. And the process I will apply is I will ask all of you in the round for your input. And then we will use the last, 20 minutes to take a decision. Does that work for you? So it's not just speaking about the real content, but showing what we will be doing.
Okay, thank you for those tips. I hope our viewers and the leaders that right now watch us could bring this into their field of reality of everyday life. In the summary of our meeting, I have a general question because we talk about the fifth revolution.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be another one ahead of us, like soon, for example, the sixth industrial revolution?
I don't know. But I'm quite sure that there will be other industrial revolutions. As long as humans will exist, they will continue their quest to find better answers, to fix problems, to find solutions. And humans are creative. So yeah, I'm quite sure that as long as people exist, there will be industrial revolutions.
So if you had to say one biggest challenge that the nearest future bring to the leaders that you cooperate with and that you see around you, what would that be? This one biggest challenge, according to Beatrix?
I would say it's an independent mindset. It's thinking that we are independent individuals and independent organizations, and we have our independent needs. I think this is a big trap. And if there were more people and teams and organizations recognizing what I call this interdependence, that what we do affects other people and other communities, whether we are in touch with them or not, whether we are aware of the impact or not. But I think if we would have this interdependent mindset, probably people in power and organizations would take decisions that are more responsible and more sustainable.
So the impact is important, according to you. This awareness of how we influence ourselves, our teams, and the world around us.
Yeah, it's what is the effect of our choices. It's not just the intentions or the values, the organization, corporate values. It's they are those nice and fluffy words that most companies have. But how do you practice them? How do you embody, I don't know, integrity and excellence, which, you know, most organizations will have these values or some form of these values. How do you practice them? What does it mean in terms of daily behavior?
Exactly. The values of the culture are not something that we post on the wall. It's something that we experience, and sometimes we are not even aware of them because we behave in a way, but we're not aware of them. So how to make those values visible for not only for the leaders, but also for everyone who is creating the certain culture?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if it's in the organizational context, most organizations have a set of values that they have defined. And then often they also have behavioral standards. Okay, so what does it mean? So for example, respect is a pretty common value. How is it practiced? Well, we behave in inclusive ways. We welcome and give equitable access to information, resources, and opportunities to people from all walks of life. That can be one example. And then the individual value, so this is on the personal level, well, that can be examined. It's, of course, either through coaching or through self-reflection. There are thousands of materials online and prompting questions that help you to figure out what are your personal values, what are the guiding principles that influence how you take decisions.
So the values are important in the fifth revolution, and are they changing, you think?
So to the first question, yes, they are important, especially when the environment is uncertain and ambiguous, when we don't have enough data or enough time. Then we need to act in alignment with our values so that we know why did we take this or that choice.
Everything is changing around us, but our values are something that are constant. So if we were looking for something that is not changing in life, values would be the closest one, right?
Yes. So our values usually don't change. We have about 3 to 5 core values, which people develop in teenage years, sometimes even before. And whether they know the values or not, these are the values that influence how they take big decisions. And they don't change. What changes is the needs. So my need as a young professional in Shanghai was very different from being a bit older in Singapore and having my 2 babies. Okay, so my needs and my priorities have changed. And what is also changing are the strategies, the choices that we apply to meet those needs, to create a life for ourselves that feels good, that makes us happy.
In a way, they are behaviors, right?
Yes.
Strategies, the way we behave, the way we try to achieve our goals or needs, fulfill our needs.
Yes.
Okay, so we found in this interview something that is not changing. I thought everything is changing, but the values are like like a safe island that we can rest as well. We can remind
Again,
ourselves.
Both and. So we as humans, we change. And again, there is this core of us, the essence of us, which remains constant. So it's a bit like a walking mosaic. It's slightly changing, but there is also something that is very solid in the core.
Thank you for reminding us about this, Beatrix, and thank you for this interview, for sharing the knowledge. I appreciate the time with you. I know you need to run into your busy schedule.
I have my next, but thank you so much for inviting me, Agata. I really appreciated the conversation with you, and I hope it will be useful to those people who will be watching.
Thank you. Za nami ostatnia rozmowa tegorocznej kampanii Bliżej Siebie. Jeśli nie widzieliście wszystkich rozmów, to nic straconego. Nagrania znajdziecie na naszych profilach na Facebooku, LinkedIn i YouTube. Zachęcam, żeby do nich wrócić, zarówno do wywiadów, jak i do webinarów. Wiele cennych informacji i wskazówek tam na Was czeka. Kolejna edycja kampanii już w przyszłym roku. Dziękuję, że byliście razem z nami. Nieustannie zapraszamy Was oczywiście również do bazy wiedzy na stronie internetowej i na nasze profile na social media. Będziemy Wam ogromnie wdzięczni za udostępnianie i dzielenie się naszą wiedzą. To nam bardzo pomaga być bliżej Was. Dziękuję i do zobaczenia już wkrótce.